So this video is about pricing and the resistance and the weirdness that artists have around pricing and around looking at art as a business, but also suggestions about how to price work and how to think about your work. So my anecdote begins with when I was on LinkedIn. Something happened to me which was really, really unpleasant, which basically was that I had gotten involved with some artists who were they were very angry with me about the fact that I chose to price my work at lower prices than they had. And it was one of the things that I was talking about very extensively, that if you look at my prices on Etsy right now, and I've got this sort of plug-in, you'll see that an 11 by 14 painting is actually, I think these are 9 by 12 or $78, and 11 by 14 is sometimes 98 or 78. And I've got these massive paintings that are very expensive to ship, and so they're 1,800. And so the reason why I'm bringing this up is because when I was on LinkedIn, one of the things that kept happening to me was people got very angry that I was making a lot of work. I'm not saying this as like some sort of aggrandizement. I would suggest that you price things as low as you possibly can, and you make as much paintings as you can, and you sell them for as little as you can to keep them in line with something that would be appropriate for how anyone would want to buy a work of art. Now, I was surprised by the vehemence and the virulence of how angry people were that I suggested that they sell their paintings for about the price of a meal, a really good meal at a nice restaurant or going out, or about the price of something that's equivalent, such as an iPhone or a piece of clothing that is, or a pair of shoes, because to me, I was thinking, well, most people who are middle class, who are earning, depending on where you live, if you're in the Midwest and you're making, I think, around maybe $30,000 to $50,000 a year, you're sort of middle class and you're doing well. So going out to eat, to have a meal and spending some money on drinks and alcohol and so on and so forth and food, sometimes you walk out of there and you pay $125. And if you've had a good experience, if the server is good and you really enjoyed the food, both you feel like you've gotten a really good deal and you're happy. People came back at me. I have a full-time job as a professor, and said, well, you don't understand. We can't make a living doing that. I totally get, like right now, it looks like by the end of this fiscal year, I might make it up to around $20,000 in profit. That's less expenses about selling my art. So I totally get that people are very angry that they want to make a living. And some of the arguments that I got were that basically, if you have low prices, you're outpricing other people and you're competing with them too much. It's not fair to other artists. So those are some things you might want to think about. So what I wanted to do was first talk about high-end pricing and working in galleries and my experience with trying to sell work at commercial galleries. And so someone sent me online, a friend of mine sent me actually a question on Facebook, and he asks me, what percentage of the price drop is simply from selling your work versus traditional galleries? He really wanted to ask about what my pricing structure was about and how I thought about it, because when I've been selling in art galleries and painting, I'm 50 years old, for about 25 years now, and I've made some good incomes, but actually don't make good incomes on solo shows because of the initial outlay that I have to make. Usually when I'm working with consignment galleries like Hang Gallery, or I worked with Karen Jenkins Johnson for a while, and also another gallery called Claudia Marr. I usually make a couple of thousand each year, even though I'll sell sometimes tens of thousands of dollars worth of work, which I don't do anymore. So here's a breakdown of the last show that I had about 2 years ago. It might have been 3 years ago. I had this really great idea for a show, and I had furniture and installations and all kinds of stuff. And I wanted to really think about what the pricing was, and I wanted to share it with you and some strategies about the pricing. So off the top, galleries take 50% of a sales price. And what most people don't realize is that galleries are not really good at promoting artists' work. I think you expect when you get into a gallery that they're going to have all these connections and they're going to do really great things for you. And yeah, very often galleries are great places and the people are really nice. I'm not cracking on them for that, but in terms of business, they really are interested in serving themselves, not you. And they have a brick and mortar kind of operation. So they have an overhead. Sometimes their overhead to give you a show can be $10,000 to $15,000 just for that 2-week to month-long thing. So I sat down after my friend asked me, and I wrote down what my prices were and tried to figure it out. So I had made about 10 to 20 paintings. And some of the paintings were pretty large. They were 36 by 48 and 48 by 60 inches. And I'm not including even the frames that I had bought up front or anything like that. The canvases and paints, it seemed to me, just from looking at my receipts from that year, I spent about $2,000 on canvases and paints. Then I had to hire a van that was carpeted. And recently, when I ship artwork now, I hire actually movers to do it, like Shamrock Movers in Palo Alto. They're really good. And the shipping cost me around $600 to take the paintings from. It's only about 50 minutes away from Palo Alto, California, to San Francisco to the gallery. I designed a catalog myself that had short stories and had things about my work, and I mailed them off. So conservatively, the gallery, just the cost of the catalog cost me $1,000, and I'm not including the mailing that I did. So this is very, very conservative. So at the front end, I spent $3,600 on just getting the show ready, okay? So in the show, I had... I did a pretty brisk sale. I sold 3 or 4 things. I can't remember exactly how many it was, but this is also, again, I'm being conservative and not trying to inflate things. A large painting that's 36 by 48 when I was selling into the gallery was going for $3,600, and then various smaller sizes, 30 by 40, and then 11 by 14 was $1,000. So my total sales in that show were $6,600. That's how much work was sold, but that's not how much money I made. The gallery took a commission of 50%. There goes half of it, okay? So what I ended up getting paid, a check from the gallery, was $3,300 for the total things that I had done. But remember, at the top, I paid expenses of $3,600, and probably, when I really think about it, because I had hired a photo booth and had done some extra promotion and bought some food and took people out to dinner, my expenses were at least $3,600, so I was out $300, probably $1,000 on that show. Now, this may sound like sour grapes, and it's not meant to be. What I'm trying to do is actually talk about a sort of reality check about what people think about pricing and when artists think that they're going to become famous and stuff. So I did a keyword search on Google, and I found some nice articles that talk about pricing trends and how to price your work and thinking about how expensive work was. And basically, there's good advice out there, and you really have to weigh it yourself. I'm not going to knock anybody's prices and things like that. But depending on whether or not you're showing in a successful commercial gallery that can make your career or not really does matter, and whether or not you're going to get recognized enough to be able to really bring your pricing up enough and have the gallery sell enough work so that you can make enough money to live off of. And I'm talking about living off of, if you're in the Midwest, you need to make probably $30,000, $40,000 to live. And if you're living in New York or you're living in San Francisco in the Bay Area, you need a minimum really to survive about $50,000 because you need to pay for a space that you can make the art in. So, I've gone through a bunch of these sites and looked at some of the advice that people have. This guy, The Abundant Artist, has some really nice YouTube videos that you can take a look at, and some really kind of nice articles about thinking about how to price your work. And, you should read through these very carefully. One of the things that artists seem very sensitive to, I'm not, is undercharging for your work. I actually kind of believe, I have this philosophy, and it has been working for me. And yes, I have a side job. But what I do is when I am selling my work, I sell it for what I feel. If I walked into a gallery and I saw one of my paintings, and I would immediately think, oh, that painting's probably worth $300 or $400, and then I cut that in half, and then when I send someone a work of my art, I make sure that I give them an extra piece of art along with it, and sometimes some giveaways like greeting cards and stuff like that. This freaks people out that I say that, but it seems like if you read other kinds of marketing videos and you look at people who are doing SEO marketing and internet marketing and using the web and using Facebook and stuff, that it almost seems like 90% of any interaction on the internet has to be something that you're giving things of real value away and you're not expecting too much. So one of the formulas that seems to be a nice formula alongside this is some people do size-based pricing. And I think that's a nice way to do it. And if you look at this sort of size-based pricing, this is pretty good. I think it gives you price per inch and that kind of thing. It always brings up those corny jokes about size counts. Now, for me, I have never bought a painting for $640, and I'm an artist, and I buy art all the time. The most I've ever bought a painting for is about $500, and that painting was significantly smaller than this painting, but I just simply can't afford to do that, even though I'm behind other artists' work. So you might want to consider who's going to buy your art. If you're making pictures of dogs, they may not be able to afford $640 for a 16 by 16 inch canvas. So these are different kinds of ideas that you have to keep in mind. And a big part of it is, how comfortable are you with your pricing, and have you decided on a consistent pricing list for yourself? Okay, so you might want to look up some of those articles and really look through what other professionals and other consultants are saying. I suggest I would really take it with a grain of salt, everything that these people are saying, because this is going to sound really negative, but a lot of people claim that they're art consultants and that they're going to help you sell your work and they're going to do very well for you. But in my experience, anybody that I've hired as an art consultant, and I've tried to hire 2 or 3, they never do as good a job as I can. And they never work as hard as I can. And then I ended up bleeding money to those people. So it's kind of nice that these people are blogging this stuff. And if you contact me, I won't represent you. I won't sell your art. All I'll do is give you resources and try to share what I have learned about it so that you can do it yourself, because I simply don't have enough time to help people. But it seems like the big thing that most people come up with is prices by size is the thing. So let me show you a couple of documents that I have that might be useful for you. This is a price list from 2006, and this is when I was showing at a gallery called Claudia Marr in Santa Fe, and that gallery has since closed. Oh, this is interesting. I wonder, that's 2 paintings sold. How many other paintings did I sell? I guess I should have looked at this before I did the video. You can see my prices are pretty high. They're not crazy high. If you're someone who's making $150,000 a year or something like that, this would be a drop in the bucket for you. And I sold quite a few paintings, and that was kind of nice. But that was what my pricing list was now. Now, a price like this, 30 by 24 inches now, I would never try to sell it for that amount. Except for if there was something going on where the shipping was very expensive, which brings me to this next look at a price list for art shipping and art delivery. Okay. So this art delivery service in Santa Fe is pretty good, and I've used them before. This is from 2007, so I'm sure their prices have gone up. But these are the prices per work for shipping, right? So one of the things that I have made a video of that I want you to be aware of is you should always try to use the United States Post Office, not UPS, and you should learn how to package and ship your own artwork yourself. And the other thing is, don't work in really large sizes, because think about it, most people live in smaller apartments and smaller houses, and yeah, it seems really sexy to make a big 60 by 40 inch painting, but it really is doing yourself a disservice, and you can't produce as much, and then you have to store those white elephants. But I wanted to give you a look at how the pricing for shipping a single work of art can be as much as $225, and if you bring it to UPS, that can be super expensive too. So in the next video, what I want to do is talk about how to design a pricing list using what you've learned in this video.